Hello, I think we are live and ready to go. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Dayana Jiselle. I'm the engagement reporter with Fresno Land, a team of journalists here at the Fresno Bee. And I want to welcome you to our conversation tonight all around private wells and drinking water. Residents in the San Joaquin Valley who rely on domestic wells for drinking water face several challenges. They have to maintain their equipment, make sure their water is safe to drink, and plan for declining groundwater levels. We're here today to talk about water quality with water experts in our region who will be answering some of your questions around private wells. We are going to be speaking with Tammy McVeigh with Self Help Enterprises, Leslie Martinez with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. But before we get started, I do want to introduce our water reporter and my fellow co-reporter here at Fresno Land, Monica Vaughan.
Hi, Dayana.
Hi,
thank you for introducing me, and thank you all for joining us. So I'm Monica Vaughan, and you may have read some of my stories about water in the valley, or you may have gotten an email or a phone call from me. And I'm glad you all are here today because water quality from private wells is a serious issue. We know that in some areas, well water comes from aquifers that are polluted with nitrate, arsenic, or chemicals from decades-old pesticides like 1,2,3-TCP. And those can have serious health effects if the water that we're drinking isn't treated. And declining water levels can only make it worse. In fact, the Centers for Disease Control recommends that you test your water quality every single year if you're on a private well. So I encourage you to make a plan to get your well tested, and you can do that by calling a state certified lab or call Self Help Enterprises to get a free test. And we're going to learn a little bit more about their program in a minute. And I just want to be clear that we will not be able to answer all of your questions today, but please know that we plan to have more water events with different panelists in the future, and we'll also continue answering your questions through our reporting at the Fresno Bee. Thanks.
Thanks, Monica. So as she mentioned, we will not, unfortunately, have time to get to all of your questions, but we are going to be focusing on some of the most frequently asked questions from our readers that have come up through Monica's reporting. But you are watching from home, so if any questions come up as you are listening to these conversations, please drop them in the comment box. As always, we will try our very best to get to those questions as long as time permits. Para los que nos están escuchando y hablan español, si gustan preguntar una pregunta sobre el tema de hoy, por favor de mandar la pregunta en el comentario. Y si no la podemos contestar aquí, aseguramos que nos contactamos con usted a contestarla en un tiempo más al rato. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I have a question here for Tammy. Tammy, are you here with us? You're on mute.
Yes, hi, I'm here.
There you are. So Tammy, let's go ahead and get started. A question here I have from one of our readers says, how can residents test their water quality for free? And the second part is why is that important to get my water tested? And then, just also share a little bit about your organization's program, what you do and how you can help.
Yeah, so how residents can go about it is we self-help starting January 1st, we're going to be offering a program where residents throughout the San Joaquin Valley will be able to call in to our line, which is area code 559-802-1685, which I'm sure will be in the box later. They'll be able to call in and let us know that they're either afraid that their water may be contaminated or there's something going on with their well that they're not sure about. And we can send one of our field staff out, and they're trained to go out, check the quality of the well, the quality of the water by taking samples, and then also checking the surrounding areas, taking a look at your septic, and just seeing the overall quality of the well and the water that's being produced from there. So they bring that back and we send it to a certified lab to have the water tested. We test for like 9 different chemicals, contaminants, TCP 123, nitrates, uranium, arsenic. There are a couple more that I can't remember. So we go through this process. You do have to income certify. It's a very simple process. process. It's a self-certification, and you're just signing, letting us know that, this is how much you make annually. And so that starts the process with us. And then if you do have contamination, we definitely let you know. And then we also help you with the mitigating that. So we'll help you pick out the perfect type of filtration system to get rid of that contamination. And then once that's installed, we'll go back and test it and make sure that it's working appropriately. And then we'll give you a report saying that you are drinking clean water from that point forward.
And Tammy, tell us, why is it important for these residents to get their water tested?
Well, drinking water that is contaminated is very dangerous. It's not safe. Nitrates can cause a lot of health issues. 1,2,3-TCP is known to have caused cancer. Just knowing that you're drinking safe water is really something all of us want to have as peace of mind. Just making sure that you don't have contamination in your water, and that you're putting that into your body or your children or the rest of your family is really important.
I do want to follow up. So for those that maybe drink bottled water or are not drinking from their well, is there still a concern with bathing with that water or just using it for other uses?
Certainly, if it has 1,2,3-TCP, that's a huge one. You're able to 1,2,3-TCP is able to be it's able to get contaminants into your skin and also inhalation. So, if you're taking a shower and the steam from the shower, you can breathe that in. So we just really don't recommend, if you have contamination in your water or you think you do, you have a domestic well, don't hesitate to call us. We'll definitely work with you, and we'll try to help you out and make sure that we give you that peace of mind and that you feel secure and have that security that you have safe water in your home.
Thank you. And I'm sure some people are wondering, for maybe those that are overqualified because of their income, what option do they have?
Certainly, you can go to Home Depot. You can even go to your local labs. A lot of them will give you the bottles to go take it home with you, and they'll show you how to pull the samples. So it's something that you can do yourself. We personally, we have a team that goes out and does it, and that helps. That helps them and us know what the water quality is. But you can do it from home yourself. And I would definitely recommend, even though we do it this one time, that all residents still continue to do it after, which is something that whenever we're working with families, we actually do train them on how to do it continuously. So that way we're educating them on the contamination that they have in their water and how to continuously check for it.
Thank you. So for those that are home shopping and they are considering a house that has a private well, what are some things they should be looking for? Maybe some questions that they should be asking?
Definitely, if you're out shopping for a home and you're in a rural area, or even if you're in the city, there are a lot of homes that are in the city that have domestic wells. I would say ask your realtor, does this house have a well? Where does the water source come from? And if it does have a well, make sure you get a well log, you get some kind of information. So if there was an inspection done on the home, find out how deep the well is, the depth to water, and how many feet of water you have left, and then the well quality. Are there any cracks in the seal, the casing? There are a lot of questions to ask. It's really important to be a smart consumer. So whenever you are out purchasing your home, do your research, look into where your water comes from and what the quality of the water is. And sometimes it's already, it has already been tested, and they may have that information for you.
Thank you. I want to bring in Leslie with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. Hi, Leslie. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So excited to be here.
I want you to talk a little bit about first what it is that you do through your position, because I know you do work with families and residents that sometimes do have these issues. So first, kind of set us a picture what your work is with the community.
Yeah, so I'm a policy advocate with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. We are an environmental justice nonprofit that is based here in the San Joaquin Valley, but also the East Coachella Valley. And we are very lucky enough to work very closely with self-help, specifically on a lot of their water quality testing programs. I think we spend a lot of time specifically in unincorporated communities and a lot of communities that actually rely on private wells and small community wells.
Tammy was telling us a little bit about what someone house shopping should be looking for. Do you find that for these residents that do live on properties with private wells, were they informed before? Were they asking these questions? And if not, what happens now that they're living there having these issues?
Right. I think that I think there's like this very common misconception, or not misconception, but a lot of folks don't really know exactly how wells work. I know I didn't until I started at this job. And, water is so tricky because it can be clear and it can even taste good. And you would be like, this water is great. This is fine. But there are so many contaminants that actually don't have like a smell or a color to them, and it wouldn't be super obvious that your water is contaminated. I'm thinking of bacteria, pathogens, TCP123, like Tammy had mentioned earlier, nitrates. All this stuff is sometimes you can't really smell it. And I know we often hear like, oh, if you have contaminated water, like you can just boil it and it'll be fine. But boiling is actually really bad for some contaminants, where they actually like come together and they like concentrate in your water. So when you're buying a new house, I think, or even if you're not buying a new house, but maybe you have to live in this rental with a private well, and you've never really, you've always lived in the city, or perhaps you live in a county island with a private well, such as like Big Garden, or I know that the city of Sanger also has a few still private wells. There's a few things that you have to ask yourself, coupling with what Tammy said earlier. I think one of the things I would, really recommend is look around, like who are your neighbors? What type of crops are your neighbors? Are you seeing almond trees next to you? Are you seeing industrial, or are you just seeing regular neighbors and a small farm, right? The other thing that asking these questions about your well, like when was the motor replaced last? Motors can cost up to thousands of dollars. When was it deepened the last time? And then I think one of the most important things is who is your local groundwater sustainability agency? Like, who is out there helping manage the groundwater around you? What are the programs out there to help you if something happens to your well? And another one that is really important is does your house have a septic tank? I know Tammy had mentioned that earlier. Septic tanks, is it in good condition? Because often if they leak, there could be bacteria and pathogens that get into your drinking water and you may not even know it. And finally, I think it's really important to figure out the cost. If you are in, for example, like Big Garden or Sanger, and you need to connect to the city water, figure out what that cost looks like. It's quite expensive in a lot of areas. So I think when you're, feel comfortable in asking the hard questions and the deep questions about your well, because as Tammy said, like some of these contaminants, unfortunately, lead to cancer and other, diseases that can really affect your life for a long time.
Thank you. So we talked a little bit about just what to look for. Now, what can residents do to protect their wells, to prevent from, declining groundwater levels if their water is safe to drink and they've already had it tested?
Right. I mean, I'll preface this by saying that I work in policy. So I work in environmental policy. I strongly believe that California has a human right to water, and I strongly believe that every single person should have clean water in their tap. Growing up, I'm from Lindsay, California, and unfortunately, like we always got boil orders. I always drink bottled water. So when I went to college in the Bay Area for the first time, and I saw somebody like drink from the tap, my mind literally was like, what is wrong with you? Like, what's happening? You can't do that. And then I found out that actually, like, you should be able to do that. Like, that is a very normal thing. We shouldn't be spending we shouldn't be, plastic and buying water bottles and also paying for a water bill, right? And I think that one of the really important things is that if you want to take care of your well, part of it is becoming really active in your groundwater sustainability agency. So these are, so in when we're talking about groundwater levels, I think it's really important to become very aware with where are you in your subbasin, who is making decisions on your behalf for groundwater levels and quality, what protections have they put forward. You can actually find out what agency you belong to online if you just type in, if you go to Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. If you just Google that, you should be able to find exactly who is making decisions. And it's so important for private well owners to engage in this process. It is probably, if there's anything that you all take today, is the phone number from self-help, and to figure out who your agency is and tell them if you're concerned about your water levels, if you're concerned about how long you'll be able to have clean water, and what programs are out there to help you, and what policies and practices they're putting forward to protect your well. Because to be very honest, the San Joaquin Valley does have a history of unsustainable groundwater management practices that have really led to chronic water depletion. We've seen it through land subsidence. We've seen it through our groundwater being contaminated. I think we're in drought-like conditions right now, and we can't really afford to continue to not take care of our groundwater.
Thank you, Leslie. I want to get Tammy on here as well. We have a question, and I wanted to give the opportunity for either of you to answer this. But someone asked if I'm filtering my water, is that going to be clearing out the contaminants that my water may have? Did you want to take a shot, Tammy?
Sure. Yeah. I think that it's really important to know what the contamination is. Any filtration system is not going to be able to filter out all of the contamination. So it's important to know first what your contamination is. If you have 123 TCP, then you probably don't want a point of use device, which is the sink device. You're going to want something on your well, and it needs to be specific to that contamination. If you have nitrates, you can use a point of use device, and they have certain filters for certain contaminations. So the importance is knowing what it is, and then picking the appropriate filtration device. But not any over-the-counter filtration device will be able to get rid of all of the contamination.
Leslie, did you want to add anything to that? Oh, you're on mute. It's okay.
I think definitely echoing everything that Tammy is saying, but I think I think it's really important to recognize that, specifically what Tammy said about the point of use. We have to make sure if your water is filtered, like somebody sold you a filtration system of water for your house, that doesn't mean that it's clearing out all the contaminants. There are very certain type of, it has to be, can't think of the word right now, but like treated. It has to be treated in a specific way for specific contaminants. So that's why I think your best bet is to always make sure that you're testing your private well as often as you can.
Thanks. And then I do have a follow-up for Tammy. You mentioned, the goal is to encourage residents to continue to test their water. What's the recommendation? How often should I be testing? Is it every year or?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend testing it every year. When we do follow-up testing, we try to make sure that we'll do pilot programs, and we try to make sure that we're testing at the same time of year every year. Conditions are the same, weather conditions, but I think it's important to make sure that you're doing it at least annually. If you feel more comfortable doing it every 6 months, then that's up to you. But for sure, you shouldn't go more than a year without retesting your well.
Does your organization allow to test then more than once in one resident, one address?
What we do right now is our program is brand new. Like I said, we're going to launch on January 1st. So we will definitely be testing as we're going to have a maintenance plan with our filtration devices. So when our vendor goes out and installs it, they will be following up with the the residents, and they will be checking the water to make sure that the filtration device is working appropriately whenever they do the scheduled maintenance. So it would be either 6 months or annually, depending on what the lifespan is of that membrane or the filter. So we will be checking in and following up with those contaminants, yes.
Thank you. And then Leslie, have you come across families that have just gone completely dry or have, emergencies? Who do they reach out to, or what would you recommend if someone just comes across a dry well or has other emergency services?
Right. I think first and foremost, if your well goes dry, the places I work and most folks that I work alongside are able to actually call Tammy. And if they don't call Tammy, I call Tammy and I ask her if she could please help. Because the reality is, if your well goes dry, I've heard of folks sometimes getting help from their neighbors, where they'll like pass water through a hose so that they can like flush their toilets and stuff. But the reality is that like wells are going dry all over the San Joaquin Valley right now. And first thing is you call self-help. They have a great program. And so there are other folks that might be able to help you. Other nonprofits like Community Water Center, if you're down in Tulare County, will help you connect to an organization that might help you. And definitely make sure to grab water bottles from the grocery store. I know that self-help can also help you with getting water delivered. But if your well goes dry, definitely look out for Tammy, because she's a superhero in terms of helping people who are having a rough time with their dry wells. Anytime it happens, I have to find Tammy.
Thank you. We do have a question that came in, Tammy. Reader wants to know, what kind of emergency water services do you offer right now? I know that you're still working on the launch.
Yeah, so right now we actually do have a program, and we've had this in place for a little while because of the drought. We have emergency tanks. So if you were to call us today and you said, hey, we just don't have any water in our well, we would definitely send somebody out, have them check out the well, make sure that it's actually the fact that there's no water in there. Sometimes pumps just stop working because they need to be lowered. So we'll sound the well, we'll try and figure out, if there really isn't any water in there. And if there isn't, then we would get an emergency tank, those giant 2,500 gallon tanks that you see around, unfortunately, a lot here in the Central Valley. We would have one installed for you. We have a contractor who goes out and installs those. And then we have water haulers who deliver water either weekly or biweekly to families. And then in addition to that, we're also working on getting at the beginning of the year, for all of our counties, being able to have bottled water delivered alongside the tank water. So that way, they don't have to go out and also take on that expense. Driving just to go get water to drink is not the funnest thing to do. So we're going to try to have bottled water available for residents who have emergency tanks, so that way they can have drinking water and water in their homes.
Thank you, Tammy. I want to give you the opportunity one more time to just share how someone can reach out to your organization or yourself with maybe any issues they may have.
Yeah, certainly. The other thing that I wanted to add is, if your well does go dry and we do have a tank on there, we also have a well replacement program, and we're hoping soon that we'll be able to help people if they're near a connection. If they have a main in front of their home, we'll be able to help them with the cost of connecting to a local system. But we can also help with the funding of new wells and drilling a new well for residents. So we're trying to have the whole package, that if you have any problems going on with your domestic well, be it quality or quantity of water, that we'll be able to assist residents. And you can find all of that information out at www.selfhelpenterprises.org. Click on the programs tab and then go to emergency services. That's us. And if you can't find that, or if you don't have access to the internet, please feel free to call us at 559-802-1685.
Thank you, Tammy. And Leslie, what area do you service families? Are you limited, or are you out in the outskirts? How can families contact you?
Yeah, for sure. So we are an advocacy organization. So if you're interested in talking with folks who are making, you know, groundwater decisions for you. If you want to be part of that conversation, if you want to make sure that your well is protected, you know, we really encourage folks to connect with us. We are in most of the sub basins here in the San Joaquin Valley, and we actually also work in the East Coachella Valley. So please feel free to connect with us. Our webpage is leadershipcouncil.org, and you can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And you can also, you know, call our office at 559-369-2790. We speak English, Spanish, Hmong, and we are here to ensure that if you want your voice heard at these meetings, if you want to help direct policy for your groundwater levels, we're going to find a way to get you in that room. And we're also there to help in any way that we can to ensure that you're part of the decisions that are being made about your groundwater.
Thank you. So as both of you ladies shared that information, we took one more question, and I'll go ahead and see whoever wants to answer this. The question reads, where can I get information about groundwater levels in my area?
I mean, for one, definitely check in with your GSA. They should have pretty good idea of like what the ground levels are in your area. But the second thing is, if you are more worried about maybe your well, definitely get your well sounded. I think that's one of the most important things to know, to kind of have an idea about where your personal supply of water, where that is. I don't know if you want to talk about that more, Tammy. I know you have a lot more experience on sounding wells.
No, I agree with everything that you say. You know, yes, it's important to get your well sounded. We cover from our service area is from Kern County all the way up through Stanislaus County. So we have a very wide area. If you can't get us out there for whatever reason, definitely, you know, call a driller, see if they can go out and sound your well, and then call your local counties, reach out to the local city, whatever it is that's nearby. You can always call them. If there is a irrigation district, you can always reach out to them as well. But just know your groundwater. Don't be afraid to call and ask questions. It's really important. You know, this is your life and this is your health. And so just make sure that you're doing your research.
Thank you to both of you. It sounds like you guys have a great partnership and collaboration going on here. I want to thank you for your time this evening, and thank you everybody watching from home. I want to invite you to keep up with our stories over at Fresno Land, more on water and more, and to just stay connected with us on all of our social media accounts. That's at Fresno Land. We do have a weekly newsletter, and appreciate local support. You know, if you want to support local journalism, please consider making a donation over at www.thefresnoland.com/donate. And thank you again, both of you. I'm sure we're going to have more conversations like this. And Tammy, once you're kicked off and launched, we would love to hear more about what you guys have going on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.